And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101. David Hines here. We are starting very late tonight because there were some technical difficulties, and when you're not the technician with the kind of skills, you're not able to settle and fix these problems. But we managed to get the problem fixed, and we are on air. Please share the link and let everyone know that Politics 101 is on. Better late than never. That's what the folk wisdom says. Mr. Hamilton Green is here with us tonight. He hasn't been on for a long time, but he's been writing profusely. I wonder where Hammy gets the energy, the intellectual energy to put out those letters on a daily basis and really exciting a lot of discussion. And of course, he's here with us tonight. He has been waiting for me to get my act together. Please share the link. Politics 101. We are coming on air tonight on a Tuesday night, doing what we do, doing what we are called upon to do in this serious time. Serious time. These are serious times. There is a reggae song I remember from a couple of years ago. These are serious times. Martin Carter in 1953. This is the dark time, my love. All round the land, brown beetles crawl about. The shining sun is hidden in the sky. Red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. The red flowers, the ordinary people, the working people, those people who they kicked out from making a living in front of the hospital, they are the red flowers. Bend their heads in awful sorrow. The poor people trying to survive in Guyana. Martin Carter spoke about them. In 1953, the brown beetles he was talking about were the foreign soldiers who invaded our country in 1953. I wasn't born then. I was born long after then. But I'm a student of history like Hamilton Green, who's going to come on because he lived through that period. Brown beetles were the soldiers. And we still have those beetles crawling about. This is the dark time, my love. Brown beetles crawl about. The shining sun is hidden in the sky. Red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. This is the dark time, my love. It's a carnival of misery. Carnival of misery. We are dealing with daily misery in Guyana. I had a chance to go downtown today, and people are there in their numbers. And they're saying, Dr. Hines, we are here window shopping. No money. No money, no money. The fastest growing economy in the world. And at Christmas time, the salt of the earth, the working people, they don't have money. We have to be righteously indignant. Over and over and over again. Over and over again. Share the link. We are on tonight. We are on tonight with Hamilton Green. And we are going to be touching on these issues. They apparently plotted not to have us on tonight, but please, we are ready to roll. We come on air. And the government announced in the newspapers this morning that they're going to repeal the Cybercrime Act. Repeal an act that they used yesterday to charge Mayor Narine and Brother Sherrod. And then you say you repeal it today. Well, if you're repealing it because it's bad. Well, if it's bad, why you charge people under it? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on with our politics? What's going on with our leaders, our governmental leaders? Repeal. And they're going to use a United Nations model that they abstained against. You all know story? The PNC agreed in 2005 to a PPP motion to investigate the murder of Dr. Rodney. It was pointed out to them, you can't investigate an assassination. You get a murder to determine whether it was assassination or not. And the PNC and the WPA to a motion is their own motion. Now, I've seen anything at the United Nations and they're touting it as more. What kind of people we are dealing with? Hypocrites and parasites, Bob Marley said. We are in trouble. This is the dark time, my love. All around the land, Brown beat the scroll about. We know about the vendor story. We know about the charging of the mayor. All the mayor was asking, are we living or moving towards a Muslim state? Are we treating black people differently? The mayor was asking questions. Questions I am asking, Hamilton Green is asking, you are asking. And you pull that man before the court for asking questions of power. The mayor may have scratched something that is sensitive. You remember a few months ago when we said we are in an emerging apartheid state? Oh, Jesus Christ. They want to bring down heaven and all the archangels. The mayor may have touched something sensitive. I don't know. Hamilton Green wrote a piece in the paper that I love. And I noticed his friend Ralph Ramkaran made that the subject of his column this weekend. Ami, you know, Ami is a Muslim, so they can't tell he nothing but Muslim. I don't know if he's still, but he was at one time. But he tell me. We come on here tonight with vendors not having a place to ply their trade and to make an honest living. What about this assassination attempt that they're talking about at the State House? A man turned up with a knife to assassinate the president. So said these. You see, if I say imbeciles, it don't come out right. If I say jagabats, it don't come out right. But you all know what I mean. A man turned up with a knife to assassinate the president. So says this government. Now, of course, when you have that kind of thing happening, you have to investigate. Breach of security is the first thing that comes to mind. We want to know, what are they finding? We don't want to hear about assassination. We get more sense than that. What is happening? Tell us. Don't tell us about assassination attempt. Sisters and brothers, things are happening. You know, the president of the Netherlands apologized for slavery. Big news! Big news! Shaking up the world. We have a lot to talk about. Before I bring in Hami, I just want to say a word of thanks. A word of thanks to Singing Franson, whose name is next to Calypso Rose as two pioneers. There were female Calypso singers before them, but the two of them, Singing Francine died on Friday, 879, too young. The sweetest female voice in Calypso, with all due respect to Calypso Rose and Singing Sandra and some of the younger bards. Singing Francine. Run away. Hop does run away. Dog does run away. Woman, why you can run away too? Her signature song. against domestic violence, saying to woman, don't stay and take it, run away, put on wheels. Singing Francine, dead at 79. Our artists have led the way in our post-independence era. And as they go, the Congo people next door to me in Annandale, they say, Congo Creole. Them a go away one by one. Congo Creole, one by one. See them a go away. And we would say in Buxton, they ice their bundle and go away. They ice their bundle and go away. Tomorrow morning, she ice she bundle. Younger donor. She ice she bundle and go away. Singing Francine Edwards, originally from Barbados, moved to Trinidad and made a name for. She's a parang lady. And at this time of the year in Trinidad and Tobago, they're singing parang. But, all right, I think we are settled now. And let me bring in the person who you want to hear. Well, you want to hear me too, but I have to bring in. Brother Hamilton.
Yes, my brother.
You remember Martin Carter's poem that I quoted from, This is the Dark Time, My Love?
That's right.
And Martin Carter himself was part of that 1953 moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you were a young boy coming into the politics at that time. What is it that we are going through today? Do we still have those brown beetles crawling about? Am I wrong to say that?
You're absolutely correct in your analysis. The trouble is, David, that the PP seem consistent with their inconsistencies. And that is, to me, the curse of this nation at this point in our history. We need to address it.
I think we've lost Hamid there for a minute. He will come back. He has an able technician there. And there you go. He's back. Go ahead, Ami. We lost you for a minute.
Yes,
there.
so
we seem to be losing the video. There he goes. Yes.
It's consistent with your inconsistencies. And Martin Carter's maybe have had a sense of prognostication to see what is happening today, years after his demise and his political activity. But if you wanted to ask me about some of those letters, let me begin with a recent one where I wrote about what I termed the unilateral declaration by His Excellency Dr. Imram Ali announcing this 8% increase. Some people may welcome it, but I'll say two things about that. Months ago, I did an analysis, wrote him a personal letter, pointing out to him that people at the lower rung of the ladder could not survive with $70,000, $80,000 a month. I gave him the price of things in the market, flour, rice, sugar, pumpkin, drum provision, and said to him that with this abundance of cash now available to his administration, what he should do is double those salaries and make a pro rata adjustment. So this 8% across the board is unfortunate because what it does, it widens the gap between the haves and the haves not. But what is egregious, what is painful, what is disappointing is that this honorable gentleman consulted none of the established unions and the trade union movement. They claim that Dr. Jagan is their hero, But at least in similar circumstances, more than 50 odd years ago, Dr. Jagan did engage the trade unionists, Polydor, uh, Cecil Cambridge, Willie Stull, Basil Blackman, Basil Blair, and those chaps. He engaged them in dialogue and he consulted them, even though when they made a reasonable request, he made this famous statement of not a cent more. But at least that followed some form of consultation, which did not exist with Ali's unilateral declaration. And what is interesting, I know that his advisors were made aware of the conditions that these workers have to live with. Most of them, as you know, from the lower group, constables with 2, 3 children. And let me say this without being racist, but being truthful. The majority are Afro-Guyanese, and that is the devilish part of this whole process. And knowing the proclivities of our people, what he has done is give this 8% a few days before Christmas. And I understand that the back pay is to come shortly. End of the day, the tragic conditions will mean this. Our people need clothing, books, things for their homes, and that money is going to go back into the coffers of his friends, most of them in the business sector, who are already enjoying, most of them, the largest from the government coffers. This thing is wisely planned by these chaps. You know, they did delay this until now by accident. They know what they're doing. And they are to remind us of Dr. Jagan's words that the Afro-Guyanese are at the bottom of the ladder. That is my opening salvo, David, on this whole question of the 8% across the board.
8% across the board for workers who keep the engine of government going. This is the dark time, my love. It is the dark time. It is the season of oppression, dark metal and tears. It is the festival of guns, the carnival of misery. Everywhere the faces of men are strained and anxious. Everywhere, Carter would say, the faces of men or women are strained and anxious. Martin Carter writing this 70 years ago. 70 years ago. Listen to these words again. This is the dark time, my love. It is a season of oppression, dark metals, he meant the guns and tears. It is the festival of guns, the carnival of misery. Everywhere the faces of men are strained and anxious. I went downtown today. I look at the faces of men and women. They're strained and anxious. Who comes walking in the dark night time? Whose boot of steel tramps down the slender grass? It's the man of death, my love, the strange invader, watching you sleep and aiming at your dream. That's what we're dealing with, the modern day oppressors that Martin Carter cited them 70 years ago.
That's right.
He was writing about the there and the present. But something about the artists brings us to the future. Brings us to the future. C.L.R. James talk about the future in the present. Oh, lovely. Future in the present. That's what Martin Carter. You were about to make a comment.
No, I was just saying, as you're reciting Martin Carter, My wife, who's in the room here, was gesticulating because that's one of her magical poems, and she was warming to it. But
Yes.
last night, David, at a session at Plaisance by the council members there, and they had a special development group. They, in fact, also honored Eddie Grant, who is from that village. And they reminded us that several villages pooled their resources to buy that plot of land. I said two things to them when I was asked to speak. One, ensure you clear the land. Because in 1920, Pandit Gwakko Sharma came to this country from the Indian National Party and spoke to large groups of Indians. The largest meeting was at Metamir Zorg, where he told them, don't go back to India, stay here and ensure you get the land. I think my message to them at Plaisance last night was to say, get back that love, that affection for the land in whatever form. Because today, the arch enemy, the oppressor, is trying to take away those ancestral lands. And this statement to which you refer to by the Netherlands should be the impetus, the stimulus, not only for reparation, but to tell those people whose ancestors suffered the greatest that they should hold on to the land and demand from whichever government is in office opportunities to develop that land and put them not at the bottom of the ladder, as Dr. Jagan once said, but give them a chance in a land of six peoples to speak on equal terms with our rest and the rest of our brothers. That's all we ask for. We're not asking for anything more. And Afro-Guyanese have always been very easy with their requests. And maybe I should add too easy, too humble. And the time has come, with the abundance of resources we have now, that we must demand a share of that large cake that is with us today. And to remind the people, our Indian friends, our brothers, we have nothing against them. Because if you listen to Nigel Hughes, and I suppose you did, David.
Yes, he was here on this program.
Right. He pointed out we're facing a form of economic apartheid, where 40 or 50 Indo-Guyanese families are reaping the big monies, and the rest of their Indian brothers, like us, live in poverty and want. And so this struggle has to be intensified by teaching our young people in schools what they face. And as we listen to the Netherlands Declaration, I think Guyanese must recognize, particularly of Afro-Guyanese stock, that we face another form of re-enslavement. And that your task, which you have been doing with honor and bunks, our task was to educate our young people in the villages, in the towns, all over. Young Afro, young Indo, young mixed Guyanese. What the stakes are, what the challenges are, and they need to understand. And if I may add one other sentence, David, the problem is, as we talk about reparation and this apology by the Dutch, and I hope the British will follow suit, the royal families talk about regretting the slave trade. But we don't want regrets. We want an apology and to set aside a few $1 billion so that it can be put to education and to nurturing our young people, tell them how to live with others, and the money to be used to help develop those ancestral lands, some of which has already been stolen by the other folks. That must be our task today.
The words and wisdom there of Hamilton Green, who has been in this thing now for more than 70 years. That's a long time. That's 2 lifetimes these days when we see young people are dying. It's more than 1 lifetime. I mean, there are young people in their 30s who are going. So the service that you have given to your country, it's more than 1 lifetime. Hami, one of the reasons I wanted you on tonight is because I want you to talk about this assault by the central government on the sacred principle of separation of powers between central government and local government, municipal government. You have served at both levels. You've served in central government, and you served for a very long time, perhaps longer in local government. But so you have the institutional knowledge, and you have the authority, if you will, to speak on this matter, not just from an intellectual perspective, but from the perspective of lived reality. When you saw the central government moving in to break down the stands of those people on the streets of Georgetown, knowing fully well that jurisdiction over those streets is, or it lies with the municipal government. What went through your mind?
Well, David, it is abundantly clear that the ideology, philosophy, the belief of this government is that they must say what they want, do what they want, ignore all of the cherished and accepted institutions of local government. I've had over 20 years with them, and I sent a letter off last week pointing out how from the very beginning they set out to frustrate the main local authority in our country, that is Georgetown, the capital. And what you saw last week was just a continuation of this arrogance, this stupidity, and this dictatorial attitude. I mean, let's take for granted that the vendors ought to be removed or relocated. Let's put that hypothetically. You're going to wait at Christmas time when they are hustling to get $1 to put a little rice on the plate of their children who are hungry? What sort of cruelty is that? What sort of disrespect and disregard, not only for local government, but for human beings? And I don't understand the callousness, uncaring attitude of this government that is talking about this nonsensical thing of one Guyana. That one Guyana means they are the one, and we are not. We are merely siphons, we are nothing. And that is why, since at the beginning you referred to my letters, which by the way is edited by my beloved wife, so don't give me all the credit. Because she can see better than I can these days in any case.
Right.
And she has a perception because being a younger person, she would understand much more how this generation is thinking. But let me say this, that this attitude by the government to local government, and I hope that the international community, that they're taking note. It is the very desecration of good governance and democracy. And I wrote in one of my letters that I alluded to the presidential cabal in the words of Cassius when he said, "Why man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus. And we petty men peep about his huge legs and find ourselves dishonorable graves." Interestingly, Shakespeare put it this way: the fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. This is the message I want to convey to our young people. Don't grumble. Write, talk, and take action. Because, as Nigel Hughes pointed out, the mighty South Africa, with a mighty army and the support of some of the international Goliaths, had to give way to the voices of the people. And though we may not be big religious people, they say the voice of the people is the voice of God.
Of God.
And we must speak up. And your program is important to this process that will bring about change. And I ask you, David, keep it up, because what you're doing is important for us to keep an even keel so that we can save our generations and those to come by giving them information, giving them bunks to agitate, so that we can be truly liberated.
So that we can be truly liberated. Hamilton Green, former government minister, former prime minister, former deputy prime minister, former vice president, former mayor of Georgetown, bringing to the former general secretary of the People's National Congress. I mean, they don't have space to all
David, in the difficult days.
Yes, go ahead.
I said, General Secretary, in the difficult days.
In the difficult days. I think you came in after Sidney King, right? In those early days of the 1960s, right?
In 1962.
62, yes. Yes.
I was the youngest General Secretary and served until 74.
Yes, yes. Hamilton Green here bringing wisdom and paying homage to his wife, Dr. Jennifer Basdio Green, and often we, the men, using and of course, having the advantage of our male privilege, we tend to be in the limelight, in the front lines, but always, they are the women behind. And sometimes we forget that we're not doing this thing alone. We're not doing it alone. And thank you, Hami, for reminding that your wife plays an important role in your continued activism as you are into those plenty years. Hami, you're about 87 now, no?
No, I was 88 on the 9th of November, so I'm in my 89th year.
There you go. And
89, and batting.
We still have two general secretaries of the PMC, still alive, Kwayana,
yes,
and Hamilton Green.
And let me say, I look forward to writings by A.U.C. Kwayana.
Yes.
At 96, I think.
97.
On the ball. he's perceptive, and he fears no man.
He fears no man.
And Kwayana Ayusi is one of my heroes. People don't know that.
Yes, yes. Sometimes, given the nature of our politics, we forget that we are first and foremost family. You know, Guyana is like a little country of families. Hami, the mayor of Georgetown, Hubert Narain, he put his body in the way of those trucks. You know, the carnival of misery that Martin Carter, dark metal that Martin Carter was talking about, and he put his body there, and Sherrod was there with him, and the government moved swiftly. They used the army to knock him out of the ranks. They used the police to charge him for incitement, and you had something to say. You had something to say about those charges against the mayor. You have the floor.
Well, first of all, for me, those charges are absurd. But sticking to protocol system matters before the court. I wouldn't want to delve into the absurdities of it, except to say, as I wrote, you charge a man for traffic offense when there are umpteen traffic offenses taking place right in front of Parliament, right in front of State House, and you do nothing about it. I mean, the thing is so absurd, I don't understand it. And the other thing about, and I was a little disappointed that the hierarchy of the GDF would send such a letter out. As I understand it, the mayor was part of the reserve, which Burnham started, and when we struck the theme, every citizen a soldier. And there's nothing, even if what they charge him for are accurate, that is insufficient grounds to take him out of a unit intended to defend ourselves against intruders from the east, west, north, or south. So the thing is, I mean, absurdity is a mild word to use. Obviously, the commander-in-chief, who's the president, I don't know who is advising him, but how could you, first of all, you don't write the mayor and say, look, your letters have said ABC, inconsistent with the Defense Act. And I see nothing about that. I'm not a lawyer. So, based on Ipsy Dixit, you write the man a strongly worded letter to say you have been discharged or whatever it is, which, in essence, in military terms, means that you have been disgraced. I have been in the British Guiana Volunteer Force. I served the Queen's College Cadets. I've been a member of the Defense Board as minister. And I think this act is unprecedented. And I again express my disappointment that those gentlemen at Camp Angaya who ought to know better could be so misguided. And this letter has obviously come from the commander-in-chief. It couldn't come from anybody else.
That's right.
And if it did, he should deal with them in the same way that we're told that, and the commander-in-chief is a strange gentleman, you know, he seemed to know nothing sometimes. He didn't know of Charam Das's vulgar outburst to an Indian lady in New Delhi until it was exposed on video. I said in one of my letters, I believe him that he's speaking the truth. But you know, the truth is a funny vessel. And if he did not know how it is, some of us got wind but found it so preposterous, I didn't put pen to paper. But there were members of the staff, members of the Indian High Commission, who ought, and not ought, would have known of this incident, how it is that your president, commander-in-chief, head of the security services, knew nothing about it. But as I said, again, I repeat what Shakespeare said. He's an honorable man. And we believe him that he knew nothing about it. If he denies this letter to Ubraj Narain, in like manner, I would believe him that he knew nothing about it and offer him my sincere condolences that he should be presiding in a country where so many things are happening and he's unaware of it.
He's unaware of it. The epitome of Guyanese, as the old ladies would say in Buxton and the villages, sarcasm.
I like that.
I mean, what you make of this Muslim thing that the mayor was wondering about, and it suddenly get the people jumpy. You are you still a Muslim?
No, I worship with everybody.
Okay.
I believe there's one God.
Yes.
And Islam, Muslims have done good and bad. Like Christian, I believe Christianity is good, but Christendom has always been the problem. So I worship with anybody. I believe there's one God. I share my Islamic, Christian, and even Buddhist and Hindu philosophies, because in each case is to make them better people and the world a better place. And that's where I stand after going through all of the doctrines and the statements made.
So,
but
this
letter
that you wrote, yes, go ahead.
To come back, I spoke with the mayor because I was a little distraught that he should be charged. He said all he said was that he's asking the president if he's not engaging him because the president is a Muslim and he is a Hindu. Now, that's a hypothetical question. And I'm not a lawyer. I am not an anthropologist. I'm not a religious guru. But what's wrong with that? In fact, the president has been tarred in the newspapers by a group of Hindus, I think sometime in March, if you research the newspapers, who claimed that these massive contracts were going primarily to Muslim contractors.
Yes.
This was written by a Hindu group, published in the newspapers early this year. If you do some research, you'll find that letter. So, I mean, what is so wrong about the mayor's hypothetical statement? But I think what they're doing, they're trying to get the word out that we are the God Almighty. I have the divine rights of kings, and that anything you say that runs counter to that, you'll be punished.
Yes.
All in the name of one Guyana, all in the name of democracy and decency. And that's the only conclusion I can come to. They want to frighten people into silence.
Yes.
And the trouble is, like slavery and after, they have their group of what we call to be compliant people, we call them house slaves, who don't understand their position.
Hamilton Green, here tonight on Politics 101. My sister Lynette is reminding me that I had a birthday this past weekend. I spent it as usual, quiet, reflecting on how blessed and lucky I have been, given where I've come from, and I'm at this point, and another year passed, and one must say thanks to the ancestors, thanks to God, thanks to the people who sacrifices,
That's
those who
right.
crossed me over the road when I was a little boy, those who give me that extra planting chip when I bought. They all made it possible for us to be where we are. And so I spent my birthday reflecting on that. I was never lucky to get birthday presents because, your birthday is so close to Christmas. They couldn't afford two presents.
That's all the problem. Anyway, David, congratulations. God bless. And may the Creator grant you many, many more years of service. We've got to save this country so that we can bequeath to our children and their children a land that is truly free, a land that is prosperous, and we can, as I said before, get a better share of this cake and get rid of these people who feel they have replaced the old master. And David, I speak to some of my brothers. And I was speaking to one whose name sounds like Hines and Green and Hamilton and David. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
And he was giving me a long lecture of the good things that the president is doing, how he means well. I said two things to him. The road to ruin sometimes is lined with bad intentions, good intentions.
Good intentions.
And secondly, if he looked at the composition of the cabinet, he would notice that those outside of the oligarchy are of one group. And the people who control the oil, the minerals, finances, the what fund, are of one group. And that is not by accident. That is by design. So I told him, look around and don't be like some of your ancestors who got the fancy clothes and lived in the house of the master. But at the end of the day, the label was still SLAVE, slave.
Thank you very much, dear.
I
Yes,
hope you got the message.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dave, for Brother Hammy. And as I said, presents have never been part of my birthday, but you can, in lieu of the present, contribute to a cause. And if you look on the screen, you will see Politics 101. We need 5 contributors tonight. We're doing the year-end thing, as you all know, and thanks to those who've contributed. Today, I had a tour of Brother Sherrod's studio. I went there to do an interview, and my God, he has really expanded. We are not going to be able to catch up with Brother Sherrod, but we are going to be doing some expanding in the new year, and we are asking you to help us with that expansion. So
you're talking about financial contribution?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. My wife is listening. She is the officer in command, and she's shaking her hand in approval. If you call her in the morning, we certainly come on board.
Thank you very much. And so Brother Hammy has come on board, so we need 5 of you here tonight, because, not very often you get somebody like Hamilton Green with this kind of experience, lived experience in this thing, and you get the kind of interview where you get substance, which is what we are about. So we need 5 contributors tonight because we want to expand in the new year. We're talking about, a podcast where I can sit down with Hamilton Green and go through his political life. We can't do it on a program like this, but if we have a podcast, we can go through and take us down memory lane. So we come in with this podcast in the new year, in addition to our signature program here in the evening, and we want to beef up our website and so forth. So please make a contribution to Politics 101. And I want to also send out a call. If there are a couple of young people who are very savvy with this technology thing, and those of you who are into the communication thing, we are going to begin an internship program. Probably for 6 months or so, where you can come on, bring your new ideas, help us to expand, help us to beef up and get the quality going. And you know what an internship, when it gets onto your resume, can do for you. So please inbox me if you are this tech type that is savvy, or you are the communication type and you're interested in an internship. We want to start that program. 2 or 3 young people learning on the job, an internship. So please inbox me if you are interested, or you know someone who's interested. Hamilton, as we move into the Christmas season, you know, those of us who are activists, we celebrate Christmas, but we continue to work.
You get a little static now. You can hear me clearly?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly. Your Christmas thoughts to our people.
My Christmas thoughts?
Yes.
Spend whatever money you have wisely. Avoid the fripperies. I know I will be unpopular, but avoid buying these stupid things like artificial flowers. Plant in your yard and get a rose. Go back to what Burnham started. Self-help, particularly in the rural communities. Use up all the lands and sing Merry Christmas, sing all the Christmas tunes. But don't put money unnecessarily in the hands of those who will fund the enemy to keep you at the bottom of the ladder and in ignorance. I was speaking to one of Jomo Grant's sons, I think, and asked him this question: how it is that the PP sends in a team with the police band to Ithaca, and nobody from Ithaca asks them questions that ought to have been asked. See, asking what I mean. So I told him that when the Burbis Bridge was first discussed, the first report looked at the soil on the Burbis River, and the location should have been Stanleytown on the east bank and Ithaca on the west bank. It was narrower, the soil was solid.
We seem to have lost Hamilton Green there, but we are coming down to the end of the program. It's always good to have Hammy on and bring his wisdom, his enthusiasm, and his knowledge to bear on our program. We are truly grateful. We got a late start tonight, but you still turned up, and I want to thank you all for turning up tonight. And as I said, we're looking for 5 donors tonight as we continue our year-end program. Tomorrow night, Vincent Alexander is going to be here to give us an update on what's happening at GECOM. They met yesterday and they decided they're going to do some field study. I think they're meeting today, and you know, we are not going to give up on that GECOM thing, because GECOM is where an election is going to be won or lost. And the voters list, if we get the local government right, then it puts us in good stead to get the general elections to be right. We want a new GECOM electoral architecture. Thank you all for coming on tonight. and spending time with us. I'm, of course, glad to be home after being away for a couple of weeks. It's good to be home. And those of you who are coming home for Christmas, please come home. It's a little bit rainy, but you rain always better than other people rain. Thank you all very much. Thank those of you, like I said, who have contributed. And tomorrow night, we're going to have Vincent Alexander, a regular, coming to give us his take on what's happening at GCOM. We are working through the holidays. The holiday fall on a weekend, you know, so it doesn't affect us too much. So we're going to work through the holidays because we are not allowing them to send us to sleep. We will celebrate the birth of Jesus because he was a revolutionary, stood on the side of the poor. And so, in honor of his birthday, we will continue our crusade, standing on the side of the poor. As I said, this is the dark time, my love. All around the land, brown beetles crawl about. The shining sun is hidden in the sky. Red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow, but we shall not be bent for too long. Old people say, 2 morning more, 2 morning more. The long rope, every long rope, got an end. And this too got an end. But it's only going to be end with the direct action by us. Oh, they don't want us to speak. But I will not still my voice because I have too much to claim, my brother Martin Cartagena. So if you see me looking at your hands or listening when you speak or marching in your ranks, know that I do not sleep to dream. But I dream to change the world. And I can't do it alone. I cannot do it alone. We have got to change this world together. Together. I do not sleep to dream, but I dream to change the world. Tata, goodbye for a few hours. Tomorrow afternoon, bright and early, we'll be back.